Today I want to tell you guys about 12 books that I want to read this coming autumn, and I did really want this to be 10, but I wanted to add 2 and I couldn't take 2 away, and let's be honest, I'm not going to read them anyway, so does it really matter? I woke up this morning at 4:30 a.m. It was a thunderstorm, and then I woke up, I went back to sleep, I woke up at 7:30, and it is just beautifully overcast. I'm so ready for autumn, guys. It is my favorite season. Usually for me, it kicks in mid-September through until like mid-November. I know the official season is a little bit longer than that, but that is when I am in the zone, and I have been so ready for the atmospheric, spooky, cozy reads that I'm going to tell you guys about today. I'm under no illusions that I'm going to be able to read these 12 books before the end of the season, but these are the ones that I'm just currently in the mood for, the ones that I really want to dive into and I feel like are perfect for how I'm feeling right now. So we're just gonna dive right in, and I will start with the book that inspired this video, because I wasn't gonna post an autumnal TBR because I do like monthly ones all of the time, but I am a big fan of the Interview with a Vampire movie, and I have recently, in July, I started watching the show and I became obsessed with it, and I've had this book forever, as you can probably tell from like the state and the age of the copy, and have been dying to get into it now even more than ever. And I've also started watching the Mayfair Witches show, and I know that by getting into Anne Rice I am committing to a lot because these series are massive, but I want to give them a try. So Interview with a Vampire is about a vampire called Louis who was turned by a vampire called Lestat, and Louis never wanted to be a vampire really, and the more time has gone on, the more he is like tiring of his existence. And so I think is it Chicago in the TV show, but he meets up with a journalist and tells the journalist his life story of him being a human, being turned by Lestat, and their kind of life together. I'm pretty sure the series as a whole follows a bunch of the different vampires. I know there's a few books that follow Lestat. I'm pretty sure that Queen of the Damned is also based on Anne Rice's vampire universe. So I don't know how far into this series I'm going to get as well, because it's a lot of books, but I do want to give them a try. I am a little bit cautious because these were published in 1976 originally, so I am expecting them to be a little bit outdated. The thing that I love about the movie and the show is how flamboyant it is, and I believe that the subtext of this book is gay even without it being outright gay. The subtext of the movie is gay as well. The TV show is 100% gay, so I'm interested to see how that kind of comes across, and I know that we're not going to get that level of queerness within the book, or explicit queerness, so I'm interested to see how it's handled in here, but also I'm a little bit concerned about how it's been portrayed and the potential for the movie and the TV show to do a better job of bringing the story to life than the original source material. A fantasy romance series that I would really love to start, I mean just in general, but it is to do with witches, is Bewitched by Laura Thalassa. So this one is a spin-off series to the Bargainer series. The sequel has also just been released, so it would be a great time to kind of really get into this. But the Bargainer series follows the fate of the world. We're following a woman who makes a bunch of bargains with this guy called Desmond Flynn, who is known as the Bargainer, and he never ever forgets to collect on his debts. Like, you have one debt with him, he is coming for it. The main character, Callie, has a string of beads up her arm that represent every debt that she owes to the Bargainer, but she hasn't seen him in 7 years. And the Bargainer series starts off where Desmond finally comes to collect on all of the bargains that Callie owes him. So in that series, Callie's best friend is a witch, and I'm pretty sure that she is the main character of this one, Celine. I mean, it sounds kind of familiar, but she is very much a side character in the Bargainer series, but I don't actually know very much about this outside of that, because the reason that I wanted it is because it's a spin-off to a series that I love. I didn't really look too much into the plot of this one. Another witchy romance is Enchanted to Meet You by Meg Cabot. This one was gifted to me by Amberly in Italy last year. Thank you very much, Amberly. And the reason that I wanted it is because I was a massive Meg Cabot fangirl when I was a teenager, but I've read nothing from Meg Cabot since. And this just sounds super cute. Like, I don't always love like cozy style romances or cozy style stories, but sometimes they hit for me, particularly when they have like a theme such as Halloween or like a witchy nature to them. And this one is following a woman who as a teenager got herself expelled from the World Council of Witches. So she's gone on living a non-magical life since then. So of course she is very surprised when a guy turns up on her doorstep and tells her that she is the chosen one. At this point we may as well just roll with all of the romantic ones. So I also have Bride by Ali Hazelwood on this list. This is one of my most anticipated releases of 2024, but I have yet to get into it because I am a little bit scared. This is kind of like a very light Omega verse from Ali Hazelwood. I believe the only Omegaverse feature that it has is knotting, but Omegaverse and knotting is not something that I typically enjoy. I'm just praying that Ali Hazelwood is going to make it work for me. All I really know about this one is that it is about the daughter of a vampire councilman who has to marry the alpha of a werewolf pack for the benefit of like some sort of treaty between them. I don't typically love paranormal romance either, but that's more due to the formulaic nature of it than to the fact that it follows like paranormal creatures. So once again, not typically a genre that I love to read from, but I'm praying that Ali Hazelwood is going to save this one for me, and I feel like this season is a good time to read this one. One that I received in a recent Illumicrate that I'm really excited to get to is Mistress of Lies by K.M. Enright. There is nothing more gothic-y and like autumn looking than this naked hardcover. I am here for it. So this one is romantic in nature as well. I'm not sure what the exact circumstances are, but it is following a woman who is very well practiced in blood magic, who kills her own father to become the head of her family, which starts her or is the first step in her path for revenge. And we are also following a bastard called Samuel who is hunting down a magical serial killer. Yeah, a magical serial killer, which pulls him into the world of sorcery and intrigue he's worked so hard to avoid. The bloodthirsty court of the Vampire King also features into this, and I am just honestly, it sounds so good. I am living for this. I have no assurances that the interior of this book is going to match the quality of the exterior, but I'm very much hoping that it does. I do have a couple of sequels in here as well, because y'all know I'm a big fan of series. The first two of which are already on my September TBR, so hopefully I will get to them very soon. The first one is The Book of Life by Deborah Harkness, which is book 3 in the Discovery of Witches series. So this is an instance of paranormal romance that I do like because it's also like has a bit of a wider scope in plot and a lot of historical elements. But we are following a historian called Diana who is also a witch, and she accidentally summons a manuscript that, unbeknownst to her, pertains to the origins of the demons, witches and vampires of the world. So this manuscript has been lost for centuries, and because Diana has summoned it, like the vampires, witches and demons sense that and start to congregate around her and try to coerce her into summoning the manuscript again and giving it to them to further their particular causes. One of the people who is drawn to Diana at this time is Matthew, who is an ancient and very powerful vampire who is trying to figure out how to save the vampiric race using information found in this manuscript, because throughout the years the magic and the power of all of these creatures has been dwindling. So throughout this he grows close to Diana and ends up having to protect her from all of the people who are trying to hurt her to get to the manuscript. I love Deborah Harkness's writing. My favorite thing about Discovery of Witches is the atmosphere created by the writing, and even though I didn't love the plot and the pacing of book 2, the writing and atmosphere was still on point. So I have no doubt that this is going to be a perfect match for the season, and I'm really, really excited to get into it, especially because book 5 in this series has just been released, and I don't want the hardback. It's stunning, but I have the rest in paperback. But hopefully across the next year I'll read the next 2 books and then I'll be ready for a paperback release of book 5. This is technically not a sequel, it is a prequel, but it is tied to a series, and that is Queen Bee by Juno Dawson. So this is the prequel to Her Majesty's Royal Coven, which is a series set in the north of England following a coven of witches who are trying to divert a prophecy that will bring about the end of days. However, this novella is set hundreds of years before any of that, following Anne Boleyn, who who is the founder of Her Majesty's Royal Coven, which is the UK's official like governing body of witches. It is very short, it's only 170 pages, which I am sad about because I love this series, so I want more, but that also makes it like a perfect short little read in comparison to some of the thicker books on this TBR. I really want to read this one, but I'm unsure about whether I want to / should read book 1 first, and that is Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. So I read Gideon the Ninth last October and I loved it, and I've been thinking about Harrow so much since then, and I actually enjoyed Gideon so much that I wouldn't mind rereading, but there's also kind of a lot going on there, so I'm also not sure whether it is just generally a good idea for me to reread Gideon in general. But this series is following book 1 is following Gideon. I'm assuming book 2 follows Harrow, but Gideon is a prisoner almost on the 9th necromantic house of this like universe or solar system. I'm pretty sure the necromantic houses are planets, and the heir of 9th house, which is Harrow, has been summoned by 1st house to take part in this competition or like series of trials that is going to choose the next like immortal warriors. But I think, is it the emperor? Do they have an emperor that this is tied into as well? So Harrow convinces Gideon to go as her, I'm pretty sure it's like a sentinel is what it's called, to serve her in this series of trials. And they go to 1st house and end up in this kind of like ruined gothic-y castle. Like they're given a clue and they have to kind of just go on their way and like figure out what they're supposed to do. So it's not a series of trials or a competition in the sense that they have any clear instructions. They're just like set loose upon this mansion to try and figure out what it is that they're supposed to be achieving. There's also a murder mystery involved as well. But I think now that I'm talking about this, I think I do need to reread Gideon, which like I said isn't a bad thing because I loved Gideon, but it does just mean that I may have to put a pause on Harrow for a little bit longer. And the reason why I haven't reread Gideon actually is because there's no guarantee that after I've reread Gideon I'm going to get to Harrow with any pace after that once again. Another sequel where it has been quite a while since I read book 1, but I feel like I could manage with this one, is The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. So this one is the sequel to The Atlas 6, which is a dark academia story following 6 individuals who are handpicked by this guy Atlas Blakely to compete for a place in the Alexandrian society. So they are all outstanding members of their fields and they all have some sort of like magical ability or magical practice, but what they don't know when they accept this invitation to the Alexandrian society is that only 5 of them are going to make it through and 1 of them will not. So the first book takes place over a year. Once again, it's not like a conventional competition because they, like in Gideon the Ninth, don't know what it is that they're doing. Like they're not assigned anything, they don't have any tests, they just spend a year like training to join the Alexandrian society but not knowing what exactly it is that they have to do to meet the criteria to be accepted. Based on the end of book 1, I feel like Atlas Paradox is going to take it a little bit away from that. I am excited to see what direction it goes in, but I do know that based on like the Goodreads rating of these books, every book in like every subsequent book in the series is rated lower than the one before it, which is never a good sign. But the main reason why I've put this one on this TBR is because the atmosphere is really good, or at least it was in the Atlas 6. This one is another one where I'm considering rereading the first book, but I don't know. And if I do end up rereading the first book, I feel like it's going to push the series down my TBR a little bit. But that is Empire of the Damned by J. Kristoff. So this one is a sequel to Empire of the Vampire, which is kind of similar to Interview with the Vampire, but also mixed with The Name of the Wind a little bit. As far as I haven't read Name of the Wind, but those are the kind of vibes that I'm getting, because in this one we are following Gabriel, who is the last Silver Saint, and the Silver Saints are a group of vampire hunters, and the first book is told in 3 different timelines. So our present timeline is where Gabriel has been captured by the vampires. Vampires are taking over the world. He is the last of the Silver Saints. He has been captured, and one of the vampires comes to him and tells him that they would like to hear his life story so that they can record it, so that the knowledge of the Silver Saints is not lost and can be preserved in history. So Gabriel then begins telling that story, and he starts a story from 2 different points. One is kind of his life story growing up and joining the Silver Saints, and one is kind of like the highlight of his career where he was hunting down the Holy Grail, which is this like famed, I don't know if it's a vampiric or Silver Saint artifact that he was hunting for. So I did really love book one, not as much as I enjoyed Nevernight by J. Kristoff, which is one of my favorite series of all time. And because of that, I feel like I've put off Empire of the Damned. Empire of the Vampire was still excellent. I still loved it, but I just feel like it wasn't quite on Nevernight level. And for that reason, I haven't really prioritized this. Now, typically in the past with Nevernight, because I loved it so much, I reread the books before every sequel was released. So I've been thinking about doing that with Empire of the Vampire, but I haven't decided yet. And I feel like I'm gonna sit on that decision for a little bit longer as well. So the last sequel I have here is Two Twisted Crones by Rachel Gillig. So this one is the sequel to One Dark Window, which was a book that I read last year and did not expect to enjoy as much as I did. And the atmosphere in this one is on point. It's dark, it's eerie, it has like an eldritch vibe to it, but it's also very gothic-y, which is why it's on this TBR essentially. So the first book, and every time I try and describe this book, I realize that this actually should be a video of books I should reread as opposed to an autumn TBR. But the first book in this series, every time I try and describe it, I feel like I should reread it, because the first book is following a girl who has a monster trapped in her head, and she's not supposed to. She has had an illness, and when people have this illness, it normally results in some sort of magical power, and this is illegal. So if you have the illness, like, you're normally executed. But her dad protected her, and as time went on, they thought that she kind of escaped the magical element, but she essentially was just really good at hiding the fact that she has a monster in her head. So the magic system in here is related to cards as well, and the goal of our main character, who teams up with somebody who I'm pretty sure is one of the king's guards, is to gather a full deck of cards so that they can summon and kill, is it the Shepherd King? Yeah, the cards are called the Providence cards, and they're trying to get a full deck so they can kill the guy who I'm pretty sure is called the Shepherd King before this monster overtakes her brain. It sounds better than I described it as. It's a lot more complex than that, and one of the things that I really liked about it is that given book one is about the same size as this, which is just over 400 pages, I feel like it did a really good job of making all of that complexity still exist while being concise and not overly dense, paired with this like top tier atmosphere and a unique magic system, or a more unusual magic system than I typically see. So would really like to get to this one. Wouldn't be mad if I had to reread book one either, because I think about it quite a lot, even though I apparently don't think about it with any clarity, because I struggle to give you guys a synopsis. And then the final book that I'm going to talk about is one that is also on my September TBR, but it is one that I don't necessarily want to read. I'm going to read it anyway, and 'tis the season, I guess, because that is the Book of Witches, edited by Jonathan Strahan. Is it Strahan? Strahan? Jonathan Strahan. But this is essentially an anthology, and if you know anything about me, I hate short stories with a passion. With anthologies, I feel like at best you're gonna like about half of them and dislike about half of them, in which case I may as well just go read a full book that I'm more likely to enjoy the entirety of, you know what I mean? I don't know. I know that there's a lot of people out there who love short stories. They're just not really for me. But this I received in a Lodge library last year, and I didn't know it was an anthology. If I did, I would have skipped it, because they're just truly not for me. But because it's about witches, I have this on my magical readathon TBR, and I thought that like this season is obviously a good time to read it. And actually, because I plan on reading one story out of this a day, I have started. I'm a little bit of the way through. It's actually not a terrible idea to read like one spooky witchy story every day, and not all of them are spooky, to be fair. They just all center witches in some way. But yeah, it's one of the books that I own it and I would like to try it. I wouldn't unhaul it without having sampled it, and as it's a collection of short stories, obviously sampling it isn't gonna like, you couldn't do a chapter on this because every chapter is a short story and every short story is by a different author, therefore every short story is different. But yeah, so we'll read it, we will embrace the season to get through the Book of Witches, but it's not, and I'm essentially reading it so that I have read it, probably unhaul it afterwards. But those are the 12 books. I don't even think in the thumbnail, spoiler alert, I didn't hold all of them. I thought that I was holding all of them, and then I realized I had a stack next to me on the bed. I'm not even sure if I can hold all of these, but here are all of the books that I would like to read this autumn. I hope I managed to get through at least, let's say, half of them, especially some of the ones that I'm a little bit more excited about. But down in my description box, Let me know if there are any of these books that you have read and really enjoyed. And if you don't think that you have anything to say, but you would like to let me know that you were here, please leave me some sort of witch or witchy emoji for the Book of Witches. If you have liked this video, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram, and my Patreon if you would like to join me on any of those. But that is it from me today, guys. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're ready to go when nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.